Let's go! Level up! Stronger!
I grind through the struggle, sweat in my veins, iron and will, I'm breaking these chains. Heart like a lion, mind on attack, every setback, I'm never looking back. Symphony rising, destiny's calling, every rep, every step, I'm never falling. Level up, everybody level up. Push it, never gonna give up. Battle the silence, conquer the pain, sweat on the floor, but power in my name.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in today. Welcome to Capital Discourse. I am your host, Dakota Jones. It's been a trying week here in the United States of America, and for those abroad as well. The conflict in Iran continues to rage on. We're seeing ships being attacked carrying oil in the Strait of Hormuz. We are now seeing multiple U.S. soldiers being hurt in the line of duty and some being killed. We are also now starting to experience what feels and looks like to be domestic terrorism at home. As of March 12th, we have seen 2 attacks, one at a school in Virginia and another in a church in Michigan. It is a stressful time in the country, and so we'll be spending a lot of our time today talking about that. Joining me today is our other host, TJ. TJ, how are you going today?
Doing great. How's everyone?
Great. But before we get into our roundtable discussion talking about Iran and its effects in the United States and abroad, both on domestic security and our domestic approach, but also our economy, we're going to be taking some time today to recognize the other things that have brought America to where we are today in a good light. We will be recognizing that it is Women's Month here in the month of March, and that we just came out of Black History Month. And not so long ago, about a week and a half ago, was the anniversary of the march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma. And we will be talking a little bit about that as well. And so with all of that, our other host, Morgan, will carry us through that conversation.
Painted to look like the sky. They tell you be quiet, don't you dare ask why. Your strength is a threat, your voice is too loud. Just another face lost in the faceless crowd. No more. But the spirit ain't gentle and the will won't break. For every future, every soul at stake. Scream, shattering the fragments of a broken dream. We rise from the ashes of the hate they sow. A symphony of voices letting freedom grow. The old world is burning. What will you build in this place?
March 7th, 1965. One of the most pivotal moments in American history unfolded in Selma, Alabama. Roughly 600 peaceful marchers set out from Selma to Montgomery to demand voting rights for Black Americans. What began as a peaceful demonstration for dignity, equality, and justice soon became one of the most shocking displays of violence in the civil rights era. Tonight, we want to tell you the story, not just of the violence, but of the courage that changed a nation. To really understand Bloody Sunday, we have to understand what led up to it. For years, Black citizens in Selma and across the South were denied the right to vote through literacy tests, intimidation, economic retaliation, and outright violence. Even though the law said they had the right to vote, local systems were built to keep them from the ballot box. In Selma, local activists had already been doing this work long before the nation was watching. People like Amelia Boynton Robinson, the Dallas County Voters League, and everyday citizens were organizing voter registration efforts, holding meetings, and challenging a system determined to silence them. Their work laid the foundation for what the country would later see on television. By early 1965, the movement in Selma had become a major front in the fight for voting rights. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference joined local organizers to help bring national attention to the crisis. Tensions were already high, and the violence against Black citizens and civil rights workers was growing, and the killing of Jimmy Lee Jackson, a 26-year-old Black church deacon and activist in February 1965, took them to a fever pitch. Jackson was shot by an Alabama state trooper during a peaceful protest in Marion, Alabama, while trying to protect his mother and grandfather from police violence. He later died from his injuries. His death became a turning point. It made clear to many that the fight for voting rights in Alabama was not just about policy. It was about life, dignity, and survival. In response, civil rights leaders and local organizers planned a march from Selma to Montgomery. The goal was to demand voting rights and protest the violence that had taken Jimmy Lee Jackson's life. So when those marchers crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge on March 7th, 1965, they were not walking into history by accident. They were carrying years of struggle, grief, courage, and determination with them. As those marchers crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge that day, they were met by Alabama state troopers and local law enforcement. What happened next was brutal. Clubs, tear gas, horseback charges. The nation watched in horror as peaceful people were beaten for asking for the right to vote. Among those marchers was a young man named John Lewis. He was just 25 years old, a leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He was beaten so badly that day that he suffered a fractured skull. Yet he got back up. And his courage, his refusal to give up, became a symbol for an entire generation. John Lewis went on to serve in Congress for 34 years, continuing to fight for the same principles he bled for on that bridge. His life shows us that one person's courage can inspire change that lasts a lifetime.
We will march through the South, through the streets of Jackson, through the streets of Danville, through the streets of Cambridge, through the streets of Birmingham. on here today. We must say, wake up, America, wake up, for we cannot stop, and we will not and cannot be patient.
Jesse Jackson was there too, part of the wider movement pushing for voting rights. He and other young ministers helped amplify the call for justice that echoed far beyond Alabama. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was leading the broader Selma movement. He understood the power of what was happening there. Days after Bloody Sunday, he returned to guide marchers across that same bridge, this time with federal protection. His leadership brought the nation's attention to Selma, but it was the sacrifice of everyday people that made the movement impossible to ignore. These men, King, Lewis, Jackson, their witness and their sacrifice continue to shape our communities today. They remind us that civic courage can move a nation. What we often forget to talk about, especially during Women's History Month, the Selma movement was not only led by famous men. Women stood at its heart, and their stories deserve to be told. Let me tell you about Amelia Boynton Robinson. Long before the cameras showed up, long before Bloody Sunday made headlines, she was in Dallas County helping Black citizens register to vote. Year after year, she did this work. She faced threats, she faced intimidation, but she kept going. On Bloody Sunday, she was beaten unconscious on that bridge. The photograph of her lying there, injured, vulnerable, became one of the defining images of the civil rights era. But that image doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't show the years of organizing, the courage it took to keep fighting when the system was designed to silence her. Amelia Boynton Robinson showed women everywhere what it means to be a leader. She opened doors not just for Black voters, but for women who saw in her a model of political courage and public service.
And I was standing and people were running because they were beating me. I did not run, so he hit me at the base of my neck. And I became unconscious.
The next woman was not famous because she sought fame. She became known because she refused to be broken. Annie Lee Cooper worked with the Dallas County Voters League. She fought to register Black voters, lost work because of her activism, and still kept going. Her life showed what it meant to stand up when the system was designed to push you down. In the years after Bloody Sunday, Annie Lee Cooper's story continued to matter because it represented the strength of ordinary women doing extraordinary things. Her courage helped later generations understand that the civil rights movement was not built only by ministers and national leaders. It was built by local Black women who risked jobs, safety, and stability to demand justice. Her example has continued to inspire people who see themselves not as famous, but as everyday citizens with the power to resist injustice. In that way, Annie Lee Cooper helped give courage to women who needed to know that their voice, their labor, and their resistance mattered. Cheyenne Webb Christberg. She was just a child when she became part of the Selma movement, and that alone made her story unforgettable. But what makes her legacy so powerful is what she did with that experience in the years that followed. In later life, Cheyenne Webb Christberg became one of the movement's living storytellers. She co-wrote Selma, Lord, Selma, Girlhood Memories of the Civil Rights Days, helping preserve the story of the movement through the eyes of a child. Through public speaking and education, she has urged young people to value their voice and their vote. She has spoken directly about wanting her story to motivate the next generation, not just to understand the past, but to make change in the present. That means her influence reaches beyond memory. It reaches into leadership, civic engagement, and youth empowerment. For many girls, especially young Black girls, she has shown that age does not limit impact and that courage can begin very early. And this is where their stories come together. Amelia Boynton Robinson helped show what long-term leadership looks like. Annie Lee Cooper showed what fearless, everyday resistance looks like. Cheyenne Webb Christberg showed that even a child can become a witness, a messenger, and a force for change. Not every life they touched is recorded in headlines. Not every person they inspired became famous. But that does not make their influence any less real. Their courage helped shape the voting rights movement, helped expand the role of women in public struggle, and helped inspire later generations of activists, educators, students, and community leaders. Their legacy lives on in people who organize, who vote, who teach, who speak up, and who refuse to accept injustice as normal. This Women's History Month, we want you to remember the story of Selma, not just as a moment of violence, but as a moment when women showed us what courage really looks like. Amelia Boynton Robinson, Annie Lee Cooper, Cheyenne Webb Christberg. These women did more than endure history. They made it. And their legacy, their fight for voting rights, for equality, for the full dignity of women in American life, that legacy is still alive today. It's in every woman who votes. It's in every person who stands up for what's right. Their courage changed a nation, and it can inspire us to do the same.
How long? Not long. Yes, sir. Because no lie can live forever. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. How long? Because you shall reap what you sow. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. How long? Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future. Behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. How long? Not long. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. How long? Not long. Because mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Welcome back, everybody, to Capital Discourse. Again, I am your host, Dakota. And thank you, Morgan, for all of that information. It truly is a lot, and I think that we really should be paying attention to those who have brought greatness into our world. Now, as we were talking about earlier in the top of the broadcast, we'll be spending most of our time talking about the issues and ongoing issues in Iran. As we know, as of this point, as of February 28th, the United States invaded Iran. And from that point forward, we've been in a back and forth on how long we're going to be there, what is happening, and what caused us to be there. But I think for us to truly understand what is going on in Iran and why we're there, we need to understand the history of that. Our other host, Morgan, put together this for you guys. And so we're going to see this, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have our roundtable discussion with myself and TJ. And we're going to discuss it at greater lengths.
All right, y'all, Morgan here. Let's talk about one of the messiest, most stressful, most what in the group chat is going on situations in the world right now. Iran, the US, and Israel. Because every time this story pops up, half the internet is like, wait, who hit who? Why are they mad? And are we all about to be dragged into this against our will? And honestly, fair question. Because this whole thing is basically giving 3 people in a toxic group chat who all swear they're done arguing, but somehow keep typing paragraphs at 2:14 in the morning. So here's the setup. Iran is like that person who keeps saying, I'm literally just protecting my peace, while also low-key building a whole squad and making everybody nervous. Israel is the person in the chat who is absolutely not sleeping, has screenshots, receipts, backup plans, and is watching every move like, oh, I saw that. Don't play with me. And the United States is that loud friend who jumps in like, I'm not even trying to be involved, but if something happens to my bestie, Israel, they are my ride or die. Whatever they need, I got it. Weapons, done. Money, done. Moral support while you do questionable stuff? Oh, absolutely. That is the vibe. And no, this did not start last week. This tension has been cooking for decades. Since 1979, Iran's government has been openly hostile toward both the US and Israel. Iran sees America as a powerful outsider, constantly in everybody's business. Israel sees Iran as a serious threat that keeps getting bigger, louder, and more dangerous. So already, nobody trusts anybody. Great start. Love that for them. Now, let's get to the part that makes everybody's blood pressure spike. Iran's nuclear program. Iran is basically saying, relax, it's for peaceful energy stuff. And the US and Israel are standing there like, be so serious right now. Because their fear is that Iran could use that program to build a nuclear weapon. And if that happens, that is not regular political drama. That is delete the whole app level danger. For Israel especially, this is not some abstract policy debate. This is a survival issue. This is, if you get this weapon, our entire future is on the line type of fear. And we are not trying to exit the chat. Now, here's where this gets extra messy, because this is not toxic enough already. Thanks, Chad. Now, Iran does not always fight people directly. Instead, it backs allied groups in places like Lebanon, Gaza, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Basically, it's like not throwing the punch yourself, but having a bunch of mutuals ready to crash out on your behalf. That way, Iran can pressure Israel and the US without always stepping into a full direct war. So if chaos breaks out, it becomes this whole, well, technically that wasn't me situation, which is very convenient. Also very dangerous. From Israel's point of view, this whole setup is deeply alarming. They see Iran building missile power. They see the nuclear program moving forward. They see Iran-backed groups near their borders. So Israel's mindset is basically, if we sit here and do nothing, this is going to get worse, and then we're cooked. That is why Israel has carried out airstrikes, covert missions, and cyber operations. In other words, they are not waiting around to see how the season finale plays out. They are trying to shut things down before the plot gets worse. Now, the US is involved because Israel is one of its closest allies, and America also has troops, bases, and major interests all over the Middle East. Basically, we need to protect our ally, protect our people, and stop Iran from becoming even more dangerous. That means sanctions, military pressure, diplomacy, and support for Israel. So, yes, America is absolutely in the mix, even when it acts like it would love one peaceful week for once. And here is why this conflict is so stressful. It moves like a never-ending clapback cycle, except now the drama has receipts, drones, tankers, and the global economy in the passenger seat screaming. Israel hits a target, Iran or an Iran-backed group responds, the US steps in, then somebody else retaliates, then somebody responds to the retaliation, then everybody gets on camera acting brand new, like, wow, who could have seen this escalation coming? It is basically international politics by way of, I'm not trying to be messy, but since you did that, now I have to do the absolute most. And now it is not just Israel and Iran trading hits. The fallout has spread across the region like drama leaving the group chat and showing up at everybody's house. Iran has launched attacks or been blamed for attacks, hitting or threatening energy and security targets tied to other countries too, including Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and shipping lanes used by countries far beyond the region. So this is no longer just two people arguing in the comments. This is the whole timeline catching strays. And then there is the oil shipping mess, because apparently this conflict also decided to body slam the world economy for fun. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important oil shipping routes on Earth, has been effectively disrupted, with shipping risks, attacks, insurance chaos, and tanker traffic all getting hit. That matters because roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply normally moves through that choke point. So when that route gets jammed up, it is basically the global economy's main delivery app suddenly going offline during dinner rush. And as the Strait of Hormuz gets messy, the backup options are not exactly giving calm, organized, and well-managed response. Some oil can be rerouted by pipeline or sent other ways, but those routes also face risks, including threats around the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb, where shipping has already been vulnerable to attack. So the energy market is basically trying to reroute like a GPS that keeps saying, faster route found, while every route is somehow on fire. That is why oil prices have been spiking, markets have been twitching, and governments far outside the Middle East are suddenly very interested in a conflict they would love to pretend is somebody else's problem. So no, people are not overreacting when they say this could spiral. Once you have missiles, proxy groups, strikes touching neighboring states, and shipping choke points that affect fuel and trade worldwide, this stops being regional drama and starts becoming everybody check your gas prices and supply chains immediately drama. So to recap, here's what has people genuinely concerned. A direct war between Iran and Israel. The US getting dragged deeper into the conflict. Oil prices spiking and global markets freaking out. More civilians getting hurt or killed. Iran getting closer to a nuclear weapon. Israel deciding to take major military action to stop that from happening. So yes, while the jokes help explain it, the stakes here are extremely real. At the most basic level, Iran wants more power, influence, and protection from its enemies. Israel wants to stop Iran from becoming a bigger threat. The US wants to protect Israel and prevent a larger regional disaster. And the core problem is this. Every side thinks the other side is dangerous, so every move gets interpreted as proof that they were right to be worried, which means everybody keeps preparing, threatening, reacting, and escalating. It is one giant cycle of, this is your fault energy with missiles attached. So if this story feels confusing, that's because it is. But the basic truth is simple. Nobody trusts anybody, everybody thinks they're acting in self-defense, and one wrong move could turn a bad situation into a catastrophic one. For now, it's a standoff. But all it takes is one major miscalculation, one overreaction, or one, nah, because now I'm mad decision to send the whole region into something much worse. And that is why the world is paying very close attention. I am Morgan with Capital Discourse. Until next time.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host again, Dakota. We're going to get into our discussion today. We're going to be talking a lot again in depth in about Iran. It's just a mess. It's a mess, but at the same time, is it a necessary mess? Is it a necessary evil? I don't know. I'm not the scholar to tell you whether or not this is a necessary evil or not. I can tell you the history, and we have gone over the history. But from there, I think we all have to make that choice of whether this is something that we need to be, whether this is an appropriate time, and whether or not the actions that brought us here is an appropriate time. But I think also during this time, with all of the information that you have, if you did not know this before, is as follows. 1, you are now better informed. 2, you are able to formulate your own opinion. And 3, I think that we all collectively, no matter what the outcome and what side you fall on, we need to come together and support the military at this time as well. I believe that right now they're out there, whether they want to be or not, and they're fighting on our behalf, whether we need to be fighting this fight or not. They're out there. And that's just the fact. And so we should be supporting them. And I don't believe that all of this is out of malice. And there's a lot of things that we've gotten from this president that's out of malice. I don't believe that this one is out of malice. But again, we're going to be 2 people talking in a room, and my host TJ is joining in. How you doing, TJ? Hey, TJ, what's going on?
Everything's going pretty good over here. How about yourself, Dakota? Good to see you.
I mean, it's an absolute unmitigated shit show, but yeah, other than that, it's where we're at.
Honestly, it's becoming the new normal here.
Yeah, it really is. It's tiring. I don't even know. What do you want? Like, what do we do at this point? I mean, we wake up and we're like, yeah, damage report. What's fucked up now? So we're really just hopping into it, guys. We're gonna have like this au naturel conversation today. Iran's a shit show. All right, let's talk about the pieces that are in everybody's mind, and I think the one piece that is glaringly so is the economic fallout from the pinching of the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranian Navy, and the response of the United States military to this, and what the ripple effects are. And well, we know one barreling ripple effect that exists, and that is gas prices. Holy shit. I don't think I've seen prices this high ever, and I'm pretty freaking old. And I'm getting older by the moment. And I can say that the Hurricane Katrina during that time was about the highest that I have ever seen the gas prices in my lifetime. I know that there was a shock of inflation in the 70s when Carter was president, and the Iranians, believe it or not, were the cause of that one. And so we saw gas prices spike then. And here we are, we're looking at barrels of oil costing into the upwards of $110 to $120 a barrel. And there are experts that says we should be at $200 a barrel before so long. And that's frightening to me, because that means like $10 a gallon gas, bro. And quite honestly, Katrina was hard enough when we were sitting at like $1.50 a gallon. Like, I remember when I just got my license, you could take $5-10, and $10 would fill your car, and $5 would put half a tank in that thing. And now if you took $5 to a gas station, they would laugh at you out the door and say you can get maybe a quarter of a gallon. And right now, where we at, that same $5 that I had then that could give me a half a tank, well, that'll give me like, no more than I could get inside of a soda bottle. TJ, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing is definitely shocking. I mean, who isn't, more shocked every day by, this administration as a whole? I mean, things escalated quite quickly. I mean, just late, February, they launched the major airstrikes across Iran. targeting like military bases, missile systems, and government infrastructures. I think, most people are shocked definitely by killing the supreme leader, which immediately like raised the fears of the conflict spiraling out of control. And right now it is definitely out of control. Iran, responded with, large waves of ballistic missiles and drones. There's fair warnings of drones coming to California and attacking the West Coast. The FBI just sent out that huge law enforcement alert. And I just don't know where we're gonna go. Governor Newsom says there's no credible threat right now, but there is still that alarming presence, because we all dealt with the drones just weeks ago, months ago, and didn't really know what was going to happen. So was that a setup for what we should be looking forward to?
I mean, yeah, it's a whole lot. I think we have a lot of things that we've got going on in the play here. All right. And I'm just going to be I'm going to be off the cuff a lot of this conversation, but I'm going to be pretty real and frank about it too. One of the things I think that we have right now is we've got folks stepping outside their lane. All right. We've got political issues that we can have discussions about, and we can have all of the different discussions all the live long day, and that's cool. But there comes a point to when having 900 cooks in the kitchen is actually detrimental to the steak. And it's detrimental to the pot roast. It's detrimental to the whole damn meal. And I think that Governor Newsom, and we know what Donald Trump calls him, I think that Governor Newsom needs to just kind of sit back and let this administration talk. Because right now they got us there. They get to bear this over this is their cross. This is for them to bear. All right, this is where it's at. And this move, if successful, is the best thing that the Republican parties will have ever done in the history of anything. And if it brings stability to the entire region, it'll be even better. And the Republican Party will be invincible, and the Democratic Party will cease to exist. Let's be real. However, that's not what's going to happen. History dictates that's not going to happen. That is not what's going to happen. Let's be absolutely clear. All right. We are now going into war. All right. We're not going to leave anytime soon. It's what it is. We're going to be there a while. No matter what they think that we're going to do. George Bush thought we were going to go in there and bring democracy, sprinkle a little bit of Febreze over top of them, and we're good to go. That did not happen. Fresh flower scent Febreze is not going to bring democracy into any place that doesn't want democracy. They don't want democracy. Some places just don't want it. They don't want democracy. We can't force them to have it. That being said, we need them to be functioning citizens of the world order. They aren't that either. All right. So where do we stand? One, we can attack them and take over their land. That hasn't worked ever in the history of, the Bible. Two, we can sanction them to hell and have them have nothing and infuriate the entire population. That hasn't worked either. It's only made things worse. So the question is, what do you do next? I think that the failure of the Donald Trump's administration, of the president's administration, is the fact that there was no discussion of what you do next. It was, we're going to attack, because that's the answer. And that seems to be the answer that this administration has, is that force is the right answer. And sometimes it's not. Statesmanship, I believe, is going to be the right answer here. And whether that statesmanship is going to be a level of force and a level of communication, and a level of carrot and stick diplomacy, one or the other, or a mixture of all three. But the problem is what we have been doing over the last 30 years wasn't working. what we are doing now ain't working either, because people are just going to get dead. Let's just be real. I'm just going to be very open and honest. People are just going to get dead. It's already started. We've seen it before. We will see it again. So what do we do? What do we do? We see prices going up. The oil prices are going to go through the roof. Stock market's taking a hit. Building costs are going to go up. So anybody trying to buy a new home now, well, you can just hold off, because unless you got a deal in the plan right now and that you've already signed on the dotted line and that price ain't going anywhere, I guarantee you, if you're building a new house right now, that is going to triple in cost by the time you get done. So hold off. Just wait, because let's be real, that's where we're at. The other thing is, what does this do to our home front security? We've seen multiple attacks. By the time this airs in a couple of days, will we have seen more? I don't know. I'm not. I hope not. I truly, truly hope not. There's no reason why anybody should go anywhere on Earth and be attacked for any reason, and especially if you're going to a synagogue or you're going to college, just to make a political point. And it appears that is the case again in these recent attacks on the 12th, where we're seeing Old Dominion, where the former student apparently, or at least a former National Guardsman who was radicalized, then come back into the school, and appears that he has attacked the JROTC classrooms inside of the ROTC classrooms inside of the college. And then, we're looking at the synagogue attack, which we don't have all of the information as of this date, which is the 12th. And we will see what happens as time goes, and we may have more answers that we'll be able to update down the line. But as of right now, we are seeing what seems to be the soft targets. And TJ, what do you think? Because, soft targets is the whole thing. And I don't know, this administration thought we were just going to go in and hit them, and then they were going to bend to our will. And I know you were talking about it earlier. This ain't Venezuela, bro.
Yeah. I was just about to say that this is not Venezuela. This is a whole country that has a very built army that has fought in wars before, and is currently already in a war, fighting now a larger war, whereas Venezuela was kind of just chilling. No, these people are war ready, and they have other countries that are ready to back them. So this war is not ending, anytime soon. I think it's been an ongoing trend of people saying, oh, we're going back to 2016. No, we're going back to 2010 right now. And
let's be real. At the rate we're going, we're actually going back to Mary and Joseph, bro. But you keep going.
We're going back to 2010, where we all were hoping for the better Christmases, where the military can come home and they don't have to go out and experience PTSD and things of that nature for the chasms of war. So to think about where we are now as a country, I'm definitely fearful, and it's not for on a insight perspective, because I am a citizen in America, but it's because things are coming to the light that a lot of people may have overlooked in recent times, and I can only pray that it's for the betterment of this country as unification goes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it really comes down to this, right? Venezuelans, I think, have wanted freedom for some time, and they continuously want to have the opportunity to have that life that they often see in the Western Hemisphere as a whole. And you've seen it with caravans and caravans of them coming into America, coming into Mexico. America isn't the only stop. Let's be real. And if you think that America is the only stop for these Venezuelan caravans, you're outside your mind. Anywhere but there, when the drug cartels are threatening to kill your kids, is where they want to go. And so, like, before we go vilifying those who are coming up in these caravans and saying, well, they're illegals, we want them out, just remember that, you know, they are living a horrible, horrible existence at times when, you know, you're under a person like Nicolas Maduro that was, you know, the leader at the time, you know, who, you know, violence begets violence. And we really don't want that for ourselves. Why would anybody else want that? That being said, the Middle East is a whole nother quagmire, because that literally, quite freaking literally, is the oldest family fight in the entire world, in the history of humankind. I mean, since we could light things on fire, the Middle East hasn't gotten along because, well, the Bible. And literally, quite literally, because, you know, the Bible. And so really the question is, what do you do with the oldest Jerry fight that existed in the history of life? How do you go in there and how do you mitigate this situation? Because it's not just one country, it's the entire Middle East. Iran is mad. Israel is mad. You've got other countries that are now supporting Israel, which is something that we haven't seen before. And I'm going to mark that as being said here as well, is that we have not seen the other countries come behind Israel in the way that they have. They are supporting the attacks because Iran is lashing out like a toddler. They're lashing out like a toddler right now. They're going, hey, like, you know, I'm going to go ahead and hit you with all of the things that I possibly can, and I don't care who it hits. And I think that everybody sees that. And so in that response, all of the Middle East, literally is like, okay, well, this one, Israel, I got you. And we're starting to see that level of coalition starting to come together. And so that helps us in the stabilization, especially with things like Kuwaitis, you know, the oil coming out of Kuwait, having difficulties getting through, Dubai being chokehold because of this, you know, Jordan and other places being hit by these rockets, and the Israelis now trying to strike back. But, you know, everybody within the reach of Iran now has that ability to be hit. You know, we've seen videos. We've seen the videos from those who either are in power now or have said that they've tried to do something before about it, trying to warn it. This was the thing. You know, as much as I don't want to give them credit for it, you know, we've seen the video that's floating around up there of Secretary Rubio talking about you know, Iran's capabilities, and we'll run that here for you.
Mr. President, I'll be brief. I know the senator from Tennessee would like to close on this matter. I think everything that needs to be said about the details of this deal have already been said. I do want to be recorded for history's purposes before I know what is going to happen in regards to this if it goes through. Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, and it will raise the price of us operating in the region. They're going to build anti-access capabilities, rockets capable of destroying our aircraft carriers and ships, continue to build these swift boats that are able to come on us, these fast boats that are able to swarm our naval assets. And they'll make it harder and harder for U.S. troops to be in the region. They'll also work with other terrorist groups in the region to target American servicemen and women. And they may or may not deny that they're involved, but they will target us and raise the price of our presence in the Middle East until they hope to completely pull us out of that region. They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. Those are not affected by this deal, and they'll continue to build them as they've been doing. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that point they will know that they have become immune, that we will no longer be able to strike their nuclear program because the price of doing so will be too high. This is not just a work of imagination. It exists in the world today. It's called North Korea, where a lunatic possesses dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already reach the United States. And we cannot do anything about it. An attack on North Korea today would result in an attack on Tokyo, or Seoul, or Guam, or Hawaii, or California. And so the world must now live with a lunatic in possession of nuclear weapons. And this is the goal Iran has as well, to reach a point where they become immune to any sort of credible military threat because the price of a military strike would be too high. And then they become an established nuclear weapons power. And never in the history of the world has such a regime ever possessed weapons so capable of destruction? Iran is led by a supreme leader who is a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future. He is not a traditional geopolitical actor who makes decisions on the basis of borders or simply history or because of ambitions. He has an religious apocalyptic vision of the future, one that calls for triggering a conflict between the non-Muslim world and the Muslim world, one that he feels especially obligated to trigger. And he's going to possess nuclear weapons. This is the world that we are on the verge of leaving our children to inherit, and perhaps we ourselves will have to share in it. And so I want to be recorded for history's purposes, if nothing else, to say that those of us who opposed this deal understood where it would lead, and we are making a terrible mistake. And I fear that a passage of this deal will make it even harder for us to prevent it. And I hope that there is still time to change our minds, but here's the good news. Iran may have a supreme leader, but America does not. In this nation, we have a republic, and soon we will have new leaders, perhaps in this chamber, but also in the executive branch. And I pray that on their first day in office, they will reverse this deal and reimpose the sanctions and back them up with a credible threat of military force, or history will condemn us for not doing what needed to be done at this critical moment in the world's history.
Yeah, with Marco Rubio saying those things back in 2011, it was a telling moment from the United States Senate floor, and I think that it speaks to his experience, but it also speaks to the Republicans' capitulation to Donald Trump, because you don't hear Marco Rubio talking like that anymore. You don't hear that level of conversation from him. You hear more of a muted tone, and I think that really kind of speaks to where the Republican Party as a whole is now, and also where the country is when it comes to responding to this. And quite honestly, when we're looking at it, TJ, I'm concerned. I'm concerned as we move forward through this, because at the end of the day, I think that we're in a situation where it's required that we do something. What that something is, I don't know. I don't know if it is to do what we're doing now, if that there's another avenue that is less forceful, or if we're in a moment of George W. Bush where we need to just talk to everybody and get the world involved. But it depends on what the evidence is, and I think that that's also the other piece. We haven't seen anything from this administration. I don't know if you've heard anything different, TJ, but I've seen nothing from this administration.
No. I want to bring up a point that you spoke on earlier, and I think it's the fact that we're watching the fall of the Republican Party, and whether it's losing influence nationally over the last 7 elections, the party they faced internal division between the traditional conservatives and the populist movement that grew around Donald Trump.
Right, but I think we've been here before. Let me point out that conversation, because it's a conversation that's been had a lot, especially over this Iran issue. I think we've been here before with the Republican Party, whether it be Iraq, which is a couple letters off, whether it was Afghanistan, whether it was the mortgage crisis, whether it was the fall of Nixon. we've been here before with the Republican Party, and we've seen them get wiped out, and they've come back. And I think that comes to the fact that the Democratic Party has yet to truly find how to communicate across the board. We see a lot of older Democrats who are these old conservative blue dogs that could communicate to those in the middle of the country and the Rust Belt, and those who had different ideals from those who live in the Eastern Seaboard and in the inner cities. And those who live on the West Coast, they don't really talk to them. But when you're in a situation which you're facing right now, the problem is you go, which one's lesser of two evils? I don't think that America should have to vote between the lesser of two evils. I think that there should be some voice that exists that can actually come to power, that would actually guide us. But hey, we sit here and we go, we're going to just vote for the Democrats. And so I think that the ringing of the bell of saying that the Democratic Party is wiping out the Republicans is false. I think truly what's happened is that both parties have just left the center field, and everybody's left looking around going, well, shit, I don't know where anybody is anymore, because they're over here and they're over there, and I don't know what those guys over there are doing, but they're yelling something about the Bible, and these guys over here are yelling something about, every right that I just don't agree with. And I think that that's where we land at this point. We've talked about equality and equal justice, and we will continue to talk about that here on this series. But at the same time, right is right and wrong is wrong. But then there's also faith and belief, right? And I grew up in a pretty religious household, and I think that that's the party's problems right now, is that you got one party that it doesn't have that faith and release, that faith, that guidance that people are looking for, and they see things that are happening within it they just don't agree with. But I don't know. You tell me what you think there, TJ, because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Democrats just don't do it in these the middle of the country anymore. You used to have Democrats that could, Tom Daschle and things like that, but now it's not there. But go ahead.
I think we are truly living in the times that a prolific African American male spoke on, and if you don't know that African American male, I'm going to state it right now. It's Martin Luther King, and we are all being judged by our character, truly here, every day. Whether it's what you do in your marriage, what your political belief is, what your job is. We're truly being judged by our character every day now. I mean, with so much access in the world to just information with T apps and Instagram and Reddit posts, we are truly being judged. So I say that because, we talk about, the changes or struggles within, both parties, like the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, that often ties back to, the bigger question that was raised by King. And it's, are American institutions actually delivering, the ideals that they speak on? Political parties, they rise and fall, they change directions, and, they debate what the country actually should look like. But King's speech reminds us that it is the ultimate goal of politics should be building a society that lives up to those founding promises of equality and opportunity. And I think that's where we have to set our focus right now.
I mean, and yeah, there's that. I also think that there's a level of our brother's keeper as well. And I think that we've forgotten about that. We've forgotten that the best thing that we can do to create an equal society is to just be nice to your freaking neighbor. If everybody in this country was nice to their neighbor, on both sides of their homes and in front of their home and behind their home, on all four sides there of the four walls in which they live, then we would just be a better world. But we're not going to get that. And I don't think we're going to get that from this government or the next government, whether it be Democrat or Republican. I think that right now we're just hoping that they don't take us to World War III. It's really kind of where we're at. And then hope to I know, right? But also hope that, that maybe they'll be able to communicate to us on some level. But I think that's the problem with Trump 2.0. If you had to take one symptom that is a fatal flaw, it's the lack of give a fuck. They don't have it. They don't have it. They don't have it for anybody. The people who voted for him and the people who didn't. And quite honestly, they don't need the people who didn't vote for them because they won, right? But the problem is that they need the people who did, and they got it for nobody. And that kind of gets you an election loss come the next election, and that's coming up in November. And I think that we're going to see some people going home. And I think that we're going to see some changeover in the government, which I think is good. I think it's a good thing. And if anything that could be said out of the Trump presidency of 2.0 is hopefully we got a lot of young blood out of it and a lot of new faces, because we need something. Something needs to good come out of this second presidency, and I've yet to see, anything good come from Trump 2.0. We can say that Iran is somebody finally standing up, and you'll hear me from time to time say, at least, and give him the nod of saying, yes, he did something. But did he? We don't know what it looks like 15 years from now.
Yeah,
we're looking at Iraq in a rear view.
I agree with you on the point that he did something, and he definitely did something, and he woke everyone up. He also, like you said, transformed a lot of younger people, and we're seeing a lot of more passion and resistance to the old traditional government. So I think, with this next election coming up, like you said, we're going to see a lot of new faces, but we're also going to see.
Keep going. Sorry.
I was saying we're going to see the loss of all the old faces. Mitch McConnell, I'm sorry, bye-bye. There are faces that are going to be gone, that we're going to be like, why do we even have this person in place or in power? And there's only a matter of time.
You're right. You're 100% right on that. We've got some folks sitting there that just don't belong anymore. I'm sorry, if you can remember that you had lunch with Strom Thurmond. I have a fundamental problem with you being in government. I have a very fundamental problem with you remembering being able to have lunch with Strom Thurmond. And if you can remember sitting down with Governor Conley and all of these folks from the South and the old ways of Jim Crow, I have a fundamental problem with you being in government. But I also think that I have a fundamental problem with the young folks that are coming into government and coming into politics, who continue to fight against what is instead of working around what exists and then making something better. And I don't think that we have a spot in government for those to come in to completely turn things upside down, because the Constitution's worked this long. Constitution's worked for a very long time, and so has the Declaration of Independence, and so has the Bill of Rights, and every other stitch of document that we have come up with since we've written the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, Constitution, all of those things that have come, from the Emancipation Proclamation all the way up to, the women's right to vote. I just have a problem with trying to take the old system and throw it out like it doesn't work. It does work. We're here, and we get to talk about this, and we don't get shot for it. And so that I think something that should be said. But this is the thing. when you come in and you're to all of these new guys that are going to come in over in November, and these guys that are coming in now that have won in these last special elections, don't throw away what exists. Work inside of it and make it better. Do that job. You go into a new company, you don't throw away their rule book. You get hired for a new job, you don't throw away the company's rule book and make your own. That gets you fired. And so expecting to come in and throw away the rule book and make the law, that's just going to get you fired, and nobody's going to get anything out of it. You know, work within the Robert's Rule of Order and then make it better. Write the laws, work down, sit down and have the meetings. Instead of having a protest every 15 seconds, sit down and have a freaking meeting and get it done. Yelling at a camera every 15 seconds isn't going to get to anybody there. It's not going to get you there. It's not going to get me there. It's not going to get any laws written. It's definitely not going to DHS open back up, you know, because, you know, at the rate that we're going, we're going to see DHS close down until November anyway. You know, and let's be clear, DHS isn't closed down. They're just not receiving paychecks. Everybody that's working there is just not getting paid. So they're just going to be angry and all just quit. So, I mean, there's that. But all of the other tasks are just going to get handed off to other agencies. It's not like DHS has been there that long. You know, so, you know, what do we care?
I mean, that's
really,
why the FBI is training with UFC fighters tomorrow, you know?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, there's only going to be like, you know, what, the UFC match in July 4th, and then the Grand Prix that's going to drive around the Capitol in a few months. You know, it's never a problem. I think they just dropped that map too. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, I think it is what it is.
That right there is sparking so much security issues for me, but you know, it is what it is.
What it is. We're gonna be there. We'll be there. It's all right. I mean, but at the end of the day, the problem I think we're having as a whole is that we are not sitting down and we're not having the discussions on how to fix it. We all know it's broken. We all know that what is broken and needs to be fixed. But the question is, how do you fix it? In the existing rules of Robert's order. Like, in the way that has been defined before us for the last 250 doggone years, how do you fix the problem? And throwing the rule book out the window is not how you fix the problem. So how the hell do you fix the problem? Sit down and have the conversation and start talking to Republicans on the other side of the aisle. You know, I'll take a Republican on this show every day of the week, and we can debate back and forth on all the different things. I'm good with that. You know, we'll have Democrats on here, and we will have Republicans on here, and we will talk about all the different things, and they will talk about the things. But it's that conversation that makes things better. It's not the conversation of political rallies that both sides have. It's not the conversations of these extremists out there saying that this is bad and this is how you take it back, and you know, by resistance of what? The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the rights. What are we resisting today? You know, I'm tired. I know everybody else is tired, and quite honestly, you know, Iran is another symptom of just being freaking tired. So the question is, how do we fix it inside of the rules that exist? Have that conversation. I will be bringing that conversation to y'all. How can we fix it? We'll be doing that, and we'll be doing that from here to November and beyond. And with that, I'll give TJ the last thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're looking at, you know, the historical references, but we are misunderstanding, you know, what was needed for those. Yeah, we declared our independence from, you know, our other country that was overruling us, but we did it by adopting methods that were useful and using them for our own good. So we need to readopt, like you said, what worked before and magnify it, expand on it.
No, I agree with you. And with all that being said, you know, the question that I pose to the viewer is, how inside of the rules of Robert Order can we make things better? For those who are running for a public office, whether it be locally or at the state level or the national level, for those who might be watching this and they're running at the national level or at the state level, how in the rules of Robert's orders that exist today can you fix the problems that we have? I think that that's an important question to ask. I think that that is what gets us through some of the hardest times that we now are facing. And I think that that's what got other folks through too. I think that that question, posing that question, how do you fix the problem that exists with using the rules that we are set by? Can we get it done? Not this new resist, because everybody gets tired. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of waking up and hearing the next level of resistance and the next level of extremism. You are too. You're tired of hearing the next level of spin. You turn on the news and you get pissed off because somebody's saying something to somebody that they shouldn't be saying. And quite honestly, a lot of journalists are coming at some folks that have years and years of birth of experience that literally are speaking to them like children in their field. And it's like, who the hell are you? And who the hell am I? I didn't spend 40 years inside a defense or statescraft or spy business. And for me to come at you and tell you that you don't know what you're doing because I read a bullet point, brief from my news editor. No, you are the guy on the field that has been there. You've seen the things and you've experienced the things. And I get mad, and everybody gets mad when they see that shit on television. And so the real question is, how do we fix the problem inside of the rules that are? And how do we have that conversation in a way that's helpful? Those are the questions that I think that we need to ask ourselves. We need to ask our neighbors. We need to ask our family members. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to Capital Discourse. And I wish everybody a safe and happy week. And tune in to our next episode.
Let's go! Level up! Stronger!
I grind through the struggle, sweat in my veins, iron and will, I'm breaking these chains, hard like a lion, mind on attack, every setback, I'm never looking back, symphony rising, destiny's calling, every rep, every step, I'm never falling.